Hi, Tracy and Riff.
Hey.
It's
Hello.
wonderful to have you. And I got this with me. Have you seen this book
Uh-oh.
before?
Uh-oh. I guess I should have read it last night, huh?
Well, let me tell you that this book is a fantastic book. I really love this book. And to tell you the truth, I just thought it was about some kettlebell swings and some bit of programming and, the kind of things that
Sure.
you do and you're known to be doing for years. I was taken by surprise to see how much of wisdom you have put into this book in terms of dealing with fat loss. Talking of which, you are one person who has walked the talk. You've lost more than 100 pounds, and for many years you've kept it off.
Correct.
In my eyes, that makes you a big fat loss expert. So why aren't you
I only
marketed as
heard
one?
big fat, and then you said big fat loss. Okay, I was like, wait a minute here. Okay, big fat loss expert.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought up fat loss.
You didn't ask to finish.
I know, but I wanted to address before he asked the question. In the book, I hope I explained the difference between fat loss and weight loss.
Right.
So there's a difference.
Totally. So the question is, why haven't you really marketed yourself as a fat loss expert? Because it's plenty that you're doing for fat loss.
Well, I would rather market myself as a weight loss person because fat loss, the biggest misconception about focusing on fat loss is the idea of losing just fat and not muscle is you have to have, as Pavel would probably confirm, you have to have muscle first. So fat loss is about gaining muscle, building muscle, working towards increasing muscle mass. Not just holding on to what you have, which is probably very little if you don't do anything to increase it. It's a very scientific process. So I think most people are interested in weighing less, being lean, of course, but leanness, a certain amount of leanness comes from losing weight, especially if you're talking about the average person doesn't work out, first of all.
Yeah.
So they're not doing anything really to build muscle or even maintain the muscle that they have. What's the point of losing just fat? So you understand what I'm saying about that?
Yeah.
But I think also you were asking more as much about why she hasn't marketed herself as a weight loss or fat loss person as opposed to a kettlebell instructor.
Yeah,
I think that
exactly.
was more
Because that seems to be a more popular position to take.
Sure. So why haven't I done that? That's a good question. I think maybe I'll do that.
Well, from my perspective, it just seemed that, it was about the transformation, and it was the kettlebell that produced. It was more than just weight loss. It was a total transformation of her identity from a fat person to an athlete, and it was the kettlebell. And I think that was the focus that she wanted to apply in that sense of like, okay, you can do this too. Is the transformative experience that we all got with, SFG, RKC, weekend, but from my viewpoint for her, that was the emphasis. That was the weight loss, fat loss was just one aspect of the transformation.
Right. I totally get that. Overall athleticism and all-round development versus a unidimensional thing like weight loss. I totally get it. Okay.
But I agree, she should be more focused on that.
Well, I think really, and the true at the heart of my transformation is that you have to, because I know you mentioned permanent or maintenance, as some people call it. I call it permanence, not maintenance, because I'm not maintaining anything. I'm permanently this way, as far as I'm concerned. You have to have something that motivates you to do that. And you brought up the readiness zone, right? And that's about staying within a reasonable point and not letting yourself get 100 pounds overweight.
I just bring that up just right away. My point was, in your book, you talk of the readiness zone. What exactly is this readiness zone and how do you get onto it? That is actually the question. So you can go right away.
Sure. Well, it's kind of funny because all of the questions that I kind of overlooked all have something to do with each other, because you also brought up this new interest that I have in kettlebell sport, right? The readiness zone is basically not getting so far away from being able to be called to duty, as a way of putting it easily, right? Living with an athlete who always had some larger goal, a meet or a lift of some sort, and not because of that goal or that interest, that motivation, that interest, you can never let yourself get too far away from that, because then it becomes something else.
Staying in touch with the goal.
Yeah, once you disconnect with something larger than that, no pun intended, then life takes over. Excuses take over. What is it that you said? It's a slippery slope, right? It's a slippery slope. So if you always, my weight fluctuates, but it can only get to a certain point where I'm like, wait a minute.
Everyone's weight fluctuates, yeah.
Right, but you have to be in touch with where that
the danger zone is.
or
this
just,
is too much.
Or just where it's like, hey, what's it going to be like when I have to go in the gym tomorrow? We know what it's like when we're feeling bloated or heavier than we want to. It really has not much to do with our physical ability. It has to do with this ability, and this ability is in charge of the physical ability most of the time. So when I decided to go into kettlebell sport, it was kind of an accident. It wasn't planned. It was an opportunity that was presented to me, and guess what? I was ready for it. All my training, all my consistency, all my eating allowed me to pick up that bell and decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to try this out. And within 6 weeks, get on a platform and do something kind of respectable.
That was pretty amazing, actually.
And so if I wasn't, if I didn't live that kind of life where I never missed a workout, pretty much I was in charge of my own food. It's about not being a victim or not leaving to chance, right? What they say is if you don't prepare to succeed, you prepare to fail.
So that's what you mean by the readiness zone.
That's pretty much the readiness zone. Anyway, so there you go.
Yeah, so I suppose this applies for all of us, including those who have no athletic ambitions per se, in terms of looking purely at getting to be leaner and healthier and being able to move around in normal life. So one should basically be in that readiness zone, that you're never that far off that you can't get back, where actually that's a large number of those people I deal with, that they have to ultimately undergo bariatric surgery because otherwise they're too sick.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, people seem to think, they look at terms of like, okay, 6 weeks diet, 12-week training program, I'm going to get in shape for summer. It's always something, and then it's a short-term thing, and then the diet's over, I can relax and get back to whatever, and then they fall so far away from, they're not within the readiness zone to get in shape, or to stay in shape, or to peak, or to meet their weight loss, their body weight goals, because it's just a short-term thing. Whereas if you have that concept of the readiness zone, you have to stay in touch with where you are. That's how I would see it.
And my own experience is if I need to be within 10 to 14 days of that zone. So, I already know what I'm capable of doing. If it's just a matter of cutting back a little bit. And like I got back from vacation, I gained 6 pounds on vacation, 2 weeks in Italy and Croatia. And the first 2 days, 3 of it was gone. I know what I'm capable of doing. It was just a matter of getting back to that normal set point.
Yeah,
and
so as you said,
doing the things you need to.
Control over your food portions. That's a huge, huge thing. How much of that control exists is very important, because most people are going to eat whatever is available at a given time. It could be in the cafeteria, it could be at a party, or whatever it is. Anyways, let's say you have this 45-year-old woman who weighs 250 pounds and is very fragile, like a Swarovski crystal in a showcase. very expensive, very fragile. How are you going to handle this person? She's come to you, obviously, because she knows that you do kettlebells, and she will help her get leaner and better.
Sure. Well, this may be why I don't have lines of people hiring me to help them out, because I am hanging around this guy too much, probably. The very first question I ask is, what's making you fat? Mm-hmm. If they cannot answer that, I cannot help them.
Well, if they won't answer that.
Well, I already know.
Don't your
I know the answer.
People tell you that I eat nothing?
No,
Exactly.
no. See, that's where it stops right there. I can't move forward until somebody can tell me and identify what it is that's making them fat. In other words, they can't come to me as a victim of the fat fairy.
Good, you're not a doctor.
Okay.
You have patience.
That great?
So,
the fat fairy.
So, I always tell people, the fat fairy is not tapping you on your shoulder, okay? It's not happening. So if somebody, and I think as trainers, the very first thing is, if you will not journal your food, if you're truly convinced and tethered to playing victim, then I want that food journal. If they say they can't do it,
Game over.
Game over. Because I know why they can't do it. They don't want to do it. They don't want to see in black and white what they're doing. 100% of the time, when somebody starts to keep a food journal, the very first thing they say is, I didn't realize how much I was eating, or how often I was eating, or what I was eating. So right away, I don't allow people to play victim. If they insist still on paying me and they want to learn how to swing or whatever, then at that point, I just got to turn it off and let them experience what they're going to experience. I've had a lot of people come and say, is this going to be the miracle? Well, you know what? You're the miracle. The miracle's inside of you already. You just have to stop thinking there is no miracle and you're a victim of something else, So I guess did I answer your question about the delicate flower, the fat, delicate flower that doesn't want to become, the true blossom?
Yeah, so. I know, but you're a hard taskmaster, it looks like.